This video may sound like it's going to be Duggar snark, but it's not. Did anybody else used to read Free Ginger? For people who don't know, that's Free Ginger Duggar. It was basically like a bulletin board, a snark website where people would gossip about Fundie homeschoolers mostly who were in the public eye. By the way, if that's the kind of rabbit hole that you enjoy going down, and honestly, I think it's entirely relevant for people to get quite educated about white Christian nationalist, fundamentalist culture, I highly recommend Fundie Fridays, who is on TikTok and on YouTube. As a homeschooling parent who was at the time a member of a Presbyterian church in America congregation and who lived in rural Oregon where there weren't any PCA churches and the entire homeschooling community and much of the religious community was in the cult of Bill Gothard, IBLP. They were all Gothardites and promoted shit like Michael and Debbie Pearl's To Train Up a Child abuse manual. I used to read Free Ginger because it was therapeutic for me as somebody stuck connected to this subculture who felt like I was living in crazy land. It felt like an alternate reality, and now how much of that is normalized in the US. Anyway, I found it really helpful, and I understand a lot of people used it for the snark factor. And I stopped reading Free Ginger. That's a whole other long story. I don't need to get into that right now. I stopped reading Free Ginger well before Josh Duggar was outed for having assaulted his own sisters, abused his own sisters, and before the Duggars forced the girls, now women, to forgive their brother on national TV. I did read Jill Dillard's book, Counting the Cost, and I think it's worth a read. Now, obviously, now in 2026, we know that Josh Duggar has been convicted. He's been sentenced to 12 years in prison for possessing CSAM. But at the time that this scandal broke about his sisters, for me, listening to what they had to say and listening to the progression of how his parents knew that he was abusing his sisters, they did not take any of the appropriate steps to get him help or to get help for his sisters, right? Their primary concern was punishing Josh. I believe they ultimately sent him to like some Gothard like labor camp as if that was going to be penance or what have you. Jim Bob also took Josh Duggar to meet with his friend, state trooper, he was at the time a state trooper, Joseph Hutchins, basically so that Hutchins would scare Josh into no longer abusing girls. That state trooper, a mandatory reporter, did not report the incident at all. And hang in there with me because I promise it's going to tie into everything that's happening in the United States right now. So that we're clear on the timeline. Josh Duggar, raised in a repressive cult that is hyper-fixated on sexuality and making sure that little girls in particular are not temptresses to boys and men. Fundie culture is obsessed with sex. This is a culture where children are also frequently spanked on their bottoms, which is psychosexual abuse. They're constantly taught about how girls and women will defraud men. All the Duggar boys were taught to shield their eyes from girls who were immodestly dressed, like showing their knees and their collarbones, and God forbid in bathing suits, right? Their mom and their sisters would call Nike, and then the boys would have to hide. Constant preoccupation with sex and sexuality and girls and women's bodies. These are the kinds, and then also lots of shame around sex and lots of physical abuse. All of this contributes to young men, to boys who are hyperfixated on sex and who have a propensity because of the abuse they have experienced and the hyperfixation with sex in their subculture, they have a propensity for becoming predators. Not even mentioning how Bill Gothard himself was a predator. He loved teenage girls. He never got married, but he preyed on teenage girls. So Josh raised in this environment, he then assaults his sisters, multiple times. His dad takes him to go see then state trooper Joseph Hutchins to scare him out of molesting his sisters. They do nothing to help the girls, right? They just encourage the girls to forgive, right? You got to forgive your brother. Hutchins, a mandatory reporter, does not report the crimes against girls that Jim Bob and Josh Duggar have confessed to him. Instead, he just scolds Josh and sends him on his way. Josh will go on to continue abusing people. He will go on to download some of the worst CSAM that is out there, like some of the most horrific shit that's out there. Scroll forward a couple years and guess what happens? Guess what happens with State Trooper Hutchins? He himself is arrested for possessing CSAM. He was sentenced to 56 years in prison. The point is there are PDF files everywhere, and they protect each other. They all look out for each other, right? Trooper Hutchins, he's a PDF file. He probably got off on what Josh Duggar was telling him about what he did to his sisters, and he did not report it. He protected another predator, a predator in the making. Josh was 15 at the time. There could have been intervention and help for him. And I think the situation with the Duggars and this state trooper is really like a microcosm of what we're seeing in our culture overall right now. When we look at the Epstein Files, there's a few different things going on here. It can be hard for us to conceptualize of how these men got away with it. I think your average person maybe thought PDF files were more rare than they are. These motherfuckers recognize each other. Like recognizes like, and they protect each other. They protect each other because they want to be able to continue to get away with victimizing children. They also get off on watching other men or knowing that other men are also victimizing children. There's a reason that Donald Trump surrounds himself, and has for many years, with men who like to abuse women and girls. We can set aside all of the allegations against Trump himself, including accusations that he sexually assaulted a 13-year-old that go back to the 90s. Set aside the fact that his wife Ivana said that Trump violently graped her because he was upset about a cosmetic procedure, I think, for his hair that didn't go well. The fact that he was found liable in a court of law for assaulting E. Jean Carroll. Trump surrounds himself with men who later go on to be accused of or convicted of abusing children. Matt Gaetz. I know I talked about it, but it didn't get a lot of press. In October of last year, Donald Trump's ex-spiritual advisor, megachurch pastor Robert Morris, was convicted of indecent acts with a child. He only got 6 months in prison because these guys they all make sure that they all get soft sentences. Look at Jeffrey Epstein's sweetheart deal. Pete Hegseth's former sister-in-law submitted a sworn affidavit saying that Pete Hegseth has a history of sexual assault and alcohol abuse. He said of himself, "I'm not perfect." RFK Jr. was caught on tape blaming his second wife, saying it was her fault that he cheated on her 37 times. And Donald Trump's best friend was Jeffrey Epstein. These men all protect each other. They all look out for each other. They all enable each other to keep victimizing women and girls and boys. So I got to tell you, I was not surprised. I was not surprised to hear this news the other day.
This is the most disturbing arrest that we've had here. He is a backgrounder for ICE, Homeland Security, and federal agencies. So when you're getting your security clearance, this is one of the guys that does your backgrounds, which is kind of scary. So we locked him up. And I think if you're going to be, these people get access, they get a high security clearance, right? Because again, for all the ICE agents, Homeland Security agents, and people getting security clearance, this is one of the people that does the backgrounds. And you come here trying to purchase.
The guy whose job it was to background check ICE and Border Patrol agents arrested in prostitution sting. And last year I did a video about the high rate of DV and violent crimes that Border Patrol agents are accused of committing, and I highlighted a number of cases where Border Patrol agents have been convicted of assaulting women and or girls. But there have been a number of other cases of that since I made that video, including December of last year when a Border Patrol agent in Chicago was charged with sexually assaulting 4 women. In February of last year, a Border Patrol agent in Arizona was charged with producing and distributing CSAM. And a little over a week ago, an arrest warrant was issued in Austin for a Border Patrol agent who is accused of sexually assaulting a woman. And the ACLU has a report on its website discussing guards at detention centers, concentration camps, abusing immigrants, including teenagers. Dozens of accounts of violent assaults. And I realize it can feel very daunting to see how widespread this problem is, but I think that we have to address it openly and honestly and look at what are the factors. How is it that our society creates so many men who feel free to abuse children and then protect other men who do the same? I would argue the root of that is oppressive religions that are hyperfixated on the purity of women. Also the subjugation of women, the hypersexualization of children, the dehumanization of children. All of that is very much driven out of what we considered fringe religious ideology in the past, now mainstream, now running the United States, now running the Heritage Foundation Project 2025 in the US government. LDS, Tradcaths, evangelical and reformed Christianity. That's running our Christo-fascist federal government at this point in time, and they are creating and enabling child abusers. So what do we do about it?